Okay, so where we left off was going through this acrylic portrait of Batman. I did think about sort of defining out more of the facial features, but instead I just decided to keep it intentionally vague, sort of blending in with the background, especially here, and then focusing more on that silhouette and the reflectivity of the armor, following on with that latest Batman movie back in 2022. Moving on, I've got some of these concept sketches that I was going through for card designs, particularly some would be the Hermit and the Fool, those sort of ideas, you know, person sitting up against, maybe there's a dog in the corner, which is sort of the iconography that they were using at the time. Now we've got more very quick pen, like felt tip pen sketches, you know, trying to catch reflectivity and different angles, different facial expressions, and then using, I guess, these are Naruto characters as, I guess, a basis point, and then trying to see if you can develop different angles as you go. These are some hands done in a brown color. I think it's like a standard like Crayola style crayon, wax crayon, as well as a pink marker, and these are dried bits of crayon. I was trying to do like wax sealing of envelopes with wax, and the crayon, I tried to see if I could melt that down, and then I had this sort of blob of wet crayon, and I just kind of smeared it along. These are some swatches for watercolor inks. I had bought a bunch of them, 4 colors: ruby, magenta, golden, and leaf, which is a green color, and you know, seeing the combinations of them and what sort of colors they can produce. I eventually ended up doing a portrait using those watercolor inks, but yeah, so on this side we have another ink based drawing. This is on a black acrylic ground, and then using I guess a sort of yellowish drawing ink with it, based on Ronnie Kenshin, which is the base of this one. Here we've got some more sketches, concept ideas, you know, what are the key words that define this character. In this case it's the Hermit, and then, you know, the hooded, generally old man carrying a staff. Sometimes they have a lantern, sometimes they're near a mountain, and then working through them, doing some sort of like very quick. I like this one the best. I think that cast shadow from whatever lantern was being held at the time was really good. Yeah, so as you can see, like, most of this sketchbook is very experimental. There's a lot of testing out and ideation happening here. We've got another swatch of the Natraj watercolors. I believe this is a set of 6 watercolors in tubes, and they have yeah, so carmine, lemon yellow, viridian green, Prussian blue, black, and white. 6 tubes. It's a surprise Frankie cameo in the background, but yeah, just getting the mixes too. I really like this mix here, really good, and nice interesting grey that happens with the viridian green. Pencil sketches, a bit hard to see on camera. This one's based off of I was watching at the time Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, so sort of 1920s black art-esque you know, ideas, sketches, and a bunch of graphite sketches where I generally look up some sort of open source imagery, Pixabay, Pexels, something like that, and then just find a bunch of faces and then try and draw them. I like this one the best. I think it has a lot of good character, and there's a real interesting depth, like where underneath the eyes or shape of the nose it's a really interesting shape and definition. Yep. Next we've got I think I was trialing out some charcoal and just trying to see if I can get sort of smooth blend. It's actually not fixed, so that is interesting because it hasn't really run, I guess, on the opposite side. It's acrylic, so there's not really anything for it to stick to, but also just some random sketches that I had done, I think on some sort of notepad that I've just stuck in. Yeah, these ones were sketches from a work event. This one is an acrylic painting of the lovely Amanita mushroom, and then I kind of put in like a sort of fairy in there as if she was perched upon the mushroom itself. And then I really liked creating these reflective areas that are sort of like the pine needles and sticks and under story decay of the forest, in between these bits of grass and moss. Really like that. Very good vibe there. So I did this one very quickly. More sketches. A printer, printing out learning. I think I was thinking about machine learning, and I was like, huh, this would be funny. In hindsight, probably not that funny. Tentacruel, the Pokemon, just as a sketch. Really like that sort of hatching technique there. And then more charcoal trials. Ganesha, the Hindu deity, remover of obstacles, and as well as a pose that is based on the same deity, done of a Bharatanatyam dancer, with the knee down, the elbow, and the arm. Like that. Next, we've got a pastel drawing, similar vein. Really like the sort of bluish neon fantasy colours here. Yeah, another fairy perched upon another mushroom, with the sort of light coming through. I was trying to go for like a bokeh effect here. Yeah, good. I really like this one. It was done in soft pastels. Cool. More sketches here again of the hermit, trying to see how it would fit into like a card, trading card, and then that sort of holding the lantern. How would they hold the staff? You know, the closed fist about. Yeah. Next up, we've got Inktober, another Inktober. So I mentioned this started in end of 2020, so I think there's about 3 Inktobers. Yeah, 21, 22, 23 Inktober sketches, so you'll see them here. These ones are a bit more defined. Again, it's Tolkien, the Legendarium, and using a prompt, linking a prompt up to a scene or something, you know, an attribute of a character, something like that, and then doing the thumbnail sketch. Yeah, so this continues on for the whole. Some of them I've done in ink to sort of get it a bit more defined. Others are like really rough, and they're just graphite. Yeah, sort of stick figurey, very loose, just to get the idea down. Yeah. Some One Piece characters, and I ordered some stuff from Etsy. I just stuck the message down in there. I believe this was some sort of Aokiji image that I found on Pinterest, and I was just kind of trying to copy the pose because I really like how you know, the head, that sort of center line moves head to neck to spine. Crocodile, my favorite One Piece character. Frankie, one of my favorite Straw Hats. I love when the eye, the robotic eye, is visible in the scenes. This one is some quick marker sketches of the different Valar. So in Tolkien's Legendarium, there are sort of these deities that are just a level below the main, you know, the big deity, Eru. And so, you know, we've got, there's the equivalent to sort of like Poseidon, and like, you know, flora and fauna, like compassion, grieving, and then like the stars, she's got stars in her hair, the big bad, which is Melkor, the gemstones in his crown, Aule, the smith, and here trying again sort of mixed media approach, sticking interesting packaging, sort of, this is like a crepe paper, tissue paper type of packaging material. It was in an interesting pattern, kind of ripped it up, stuck it everywhere, and then used an orange ballpoint pen to kind of fill out that space. Pineapples, tea, icy, popsicle, daisies, a bird, lemon, pencil, stuff like that. I'm just trying to fill the gaps left in by the paper. More just general sketches. This is definitely like, you start off with a pen. Crocodile from One Piece. You start off with a pen, and then you define the, like, sort of start to render it out using a pencil, tonal study. Down here we've got sketches of the Khajiit from the Elder Scrolls games, Maik, because I was listening to a song by the Young Scrolls that involved Maik, and I was like, oh, isn't that an interesting concept? I think that's Frankie again. This one is also really interesting. Yeah, very loose, quick sketches of what the 10 incarnations of Lord Vishnu would look like if they were sort of translated to like modern day like occupations. So those who are not familiar, like, there's a bunch of different animals, different people that Lord Vishnu incarnates into, and like there's a fish who would like make a fish in an aquarium, like a Galapagos turtle, and then, like, you know, UFC fighters, or people that, you know, work on cattle farms, lumberjacks, you know, different ideas there. This is Elendil. This would have been a concept of Tolkien Toba, where, you know, we had Elendil, who was the Isildur's dad, if you're familiar with the lore, who had this really fancy winged helmet. And I like the concept of that winged helmet, and how the shadow cast there from the helmet, and then like the eyes, you know, the blood of the Westerness coming through there. This was done around Christmas time, very Christmassy colour palette there, brown, green, red, yellow, candle, pine cones, some berries of some sort, winter berries, pine needles, that sort of thing. pencil sketches, some foliage here, hibiscus. Hibiscus appears a lot in this. I think it's because it's one of the few flowers that I can actually draw. Just some general, like a nondescript person. Sphere, a lemon, again a sort of tonal study. Similar thing to that mixed media approach, collage approach, where you just stick bits. I think these were offcuts from some sort of like card making project, stuck them in and then used the gaps and filled them in with a marker, and in this case like a base character. But some of them, as you can see, I don't like it, I think it looks bad, but that's the whole point of a sketchbook, right? It's sometimes it looks bad, and that's fine. This was some compositions from an Ikebana book that I had borrowed from the library to read about Ikebana. But some of these compositions were really interesting. Like, of course, they were floral, but you know, this one is like stacking boxes and then having these, I believe they're orchids, sort of arranged around and then have them falling, or cascading down. Wine glasses, and then having a tulip with the entire bulb in it. Really thin, like long Ikebana arrangements in like a vase, interesting vase, like bamboo boxes that are like skewed to one side, so it's like really heavy here and you've got one to balance, sort of like a parfait glass, kettle, like interesting vessels, as well as interesting floral arrangements that complement this. I like this one too. It uses the cherry blossom stems as they're blooming. They've been just cut and then placed in sort of the context of, let's say, like a hallway or against a blank wall. This was a flower I got from the temple that I just kind of pressed in, and it's been preserved like that. Some sketches, marker sketches, felt pen sketches of some Jedi characters from Star Wars, so Shakti, Luminara Unduli, and Kit Fisto, who were prevalent in, I guess, the prequel and Clone Wars eras. More Star Wars related stuff. Believe that's Carrie Fisher in one of those things. Yoda, Anakin and Vader, Boba Fett, Padme, Chewie. I don't know who that is. I think that's just some nondescript stuff. The Mandalorian, the Mythosaur, R2-D2, Luke, and like I like how as they progress, like some of these are really good, and then they start to, like I start to give up. Like when I get to Han Solo, I'm like whatever. Yeah. So more of these ideas, some general faces. I like this idea. Often you'll see like Krishna, the Hindu god, have these like really circular like marks. Like if you think about those sort of dolls that have really circular like blushes, that's sort of that idea. I thought it was really funny. This was the point in the story we were reading of the Ramayana that involves the death of Jatayu, which was really sad. And then I sort of drew out that scene there. More concept sketches for possible tarot cards. This one would have been the moon. And you know, keywords, key features. I like that sort of moon with face combo, so I've tried it out a number of times and to see how it would work, whether, you know, having a wolf howling at the moon while also having this portrait work, crayfish, how would that all fit in? Some JoJo sketches. I think around this time I was starting to continue watching JoJo. I'd started it some number of years ago, but I only got through part 1, and then I eventually got through part 2, and then I'm now up to part 5. And some of these look like, you know, when you go over them a couple of times, they start to look a little unhinged, but Jotaro there, Dio alike, Joseph alike. This is Joseph take 1, Joseph take 2. You can see definitely I fixed up some of the proportions there. Jonathan, Lisa, and an attempted Kakuin, but I didn't finish that one. More of these marker sketches. Now I like doing marker sketches, and they come up a lot in the sketchbook because they're permanent. You know, you don't have to rely on erasing, you just have to do it. Yeah. I don't know what this is. It almost looks like I was going to draw a horse and then I didn't. But yeah, so different foot placement, postures, so dancing postures, a knife, the Stanley knife, the pot, a cup of tea. I'm trying out some metallic markers, and then filling out that space. So trying out the colours, just some general sketches, stuff that you can see. More marker sketches here, faces, trying different angles, different face shapes, you know, ages of different people, hands. These are my own hands. It would have been like, you know, like that, and trying to get those planes captured. More hands. This would have been my own hand, something like this, something like that, and then Taekwondo sketches. So how they, you know, spacing, position, leg movement, and this will come up later too. Like, I really like that sort of swooping motion, and then as I recently done some art projects involving that motion too. More pen sketches, trying and failing to get interesting poses. Star Platinum, Jotaro stand, Jotaro there. I think this was attempted Jotaro, but it didn't look that good. Kakuin. Using watercolor pencils, I think these are, or water soluble watercolors. Line contours, trying it out, trying to draw poses, people. This was from some sort of like training session at work, and I drew my shoes and how they looked, and but I guess it's wearing like a checkered pattern. Nico Robin from One Piece was supposed to look better, and then what happened was this was still wet, and then it smudged out over the nose. Trombone. This is from the Color Walk Compendium, some of the openings. Zoro, I like this one. This is a very old sketch of when I used to paint my phone cases. Now my phone cases is like blank, but I used to paint them in with nail polish. And then I would just copy out like a still of like Dragon Ball Z or something. Abdul. This was trying with ink wash, but it wasn't that effective, I think. Definitely need a bit more concentrated. Again, that hermit that I have yet to actually draw. Different nose profiles and the difference between, I guess, Avdol's nose, Polnareff's nose. I was drawing a face, ended up looking like Michael Jackson, so here we are. We got Michael Jackson there. I like these two. I think definitely the ink really pulls it together, that black ink. Yeah, more ink sketches. It's done with a brush, so you know, thin brush. Really like how shadows get put in. Yeah, very random. More concepts. Constellations, things like I was thinking if I do like t-shirt designs, painting on t-shirts with acrylic fabric paint, what could I do? Concept for ink, so trying my neatness with the dip pen and also drawing with the dip pen, you know, with playing cards. Acrylic sketches, again more hands, spheres, hands. It's almost always a right hand because I'm left-handed, so I do the thing and then draw it out. Hydraulic press, someone's head in the hydraulic press. I think I was having a headache that day, and that's what it became. Podcast the Ace, another acrylic piece. Like this one because I like that the under color, just the green, still shows through. Yeah, and that makes the red of the hat and certain parts of the face really stand out. Polnareff sketches, I like this one. I like the connection between the hand to shoulder to hip connection is good, and I like this angle too. Toilet. More ink sketches, generic faces with an acrylic background. More sketches. This was a concept for a painting that I wanted to give as a gift. I ended up going over this painting with a different design and then gifting that instead. Josuke, so clearly I've gotten to part 4 by this point. More marker sketches, and then like these random bits are excess. You know when you're doing a painting and you have excess paint that is left to dry, then I would kind of put it in. Again, Josuke. More Josuke. I think this is a brush marker. I'm trying it out, and Koichi, yes. More Josuke. Again, with the brush marker, trying out poses. JoJo's really good for like interesting poses, but if you kind of suck at proportions, it can become really hard. So, Josuke, Rohan, a generic person here. Really like this sort of graphic style of outlining.